3 months after the meeting with Nancy Bell, the Galactic Confederation prepared for the first official contact with Earth. The small test had gone better than anyone expected. Nancy had not only stayed calm but had also kept the meeting secret. When the aliens asked her to, she had simply said, "Not my business to cause a panic," and promised to stay quiet until the proper authorities made an announcement. Now it was time for that announcement. The Confederation had chosen Ambassador P. Kilori to lead the diplomatic mission. She was the best they had. Over 300 years of experience with first contacts and not a single failure. "Remember," she told her team as their ship entered, "Earth orbit, humans are unpredictable, but the protocols still apply. We follow the standard procedures." Skal, now serving as the chief human expert on the mission, was not so sure. "Ambassador, my research suggests that humans respond better to flexibility than to rigid protocols." Piccolori's skin rippled with blue patterns, a sign of irritation. "The Confederation has made first contact with 17 species. The protocols exist for a reason." The humans had chosen a neutral meeting place, an island nation called New Zealand, selected because of its natural beauty and peaceful history. The Earth's United Nations had sent a team led by Ambassador Alan Carter, a man with gray hair and a friendly face who had worked in international relations for 40 years. The landing site was a large, open field surrounded by mountains. 500 human officials waited, along with news teams that would broadcast the historic meeting to the entire planet. As the alien ship landed, a hush fell over the crowd. The ship was larger than humans had expected, about the size of a small office building, and shaped like a perfect sphere that shimmered with colors that seemed to shift and change. A door appeared in the side of the ship, and Ambassador Piccolori led her team of 20 diplomats down a ramp. They walked slowly, carefully following the practiced movements designed not to appear threatening. Ambassador Carter stepped forward with 5 other humans. His hands were empty and held out to his sides, the gesture of peace that ZK Dill had recommended based on his research. "On behalf of Earth and all its people, we welcome you to our world," Carter said. His voice steady despite the historic moment. Ambassador Piccolori moved her upper limbs in the formal greeting of the Confederation. "We bring the greetings of 5,000 worlds united in peace and knowledge." The prepared speeches continued for several minutes. Then, following protocol, Piccolori presented the standard First Contact Agreement, a document of 347 pages that outlined the terms of initial relations between Earth and the Confederation. "This document," she explained, "has been translated into your 12 most common languages. It contains the standard terms for new species joining the galactic community. Your leaders should review it and—" "Actually," Ambassador Carter interrupted, with a smile, "we've prepared something as well." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a single sheet of paper. This was not part of the protocol. Piccolori's skin showed a ripple of surprise, and she looked at ZK with all 4 of her eyes. ZK stepped forward. "What is this document?" "We call it the Friendship First Principle," Carter explained. "Before we get into the complicated details, we thought we might agree on some basic ideas that both our peoples can understand." He handed the paper to ZK, who read it quickly. The document contained just 5 simple points. "We will be honest with each other. We will respect each other's differences. We will help each other in times of need. We will share knowledge for the good of all. We will work together to solve problems." ZK looked up in surprise. The paper was simple, something a child might understand. Yet somehow these 5 points addressed the core ideas that the Confederation's massive document explained in thousands of complex words. "Ambassador Carter," Piccolori said, her translator struggling to find the right words, "this is not the standard procedure. The agreement we've prepared covers all aspects of—" "And we'll get to all that," Carter said, his smile never fading. "But our people respond better to big ideas they can understand than to details they can't. We thought we might start with the spirit of our relationship before we define all its rules." Piccolori was at a loss. In 300 years, no species had ever suggested changing the first contact protocol. Her skin showed patterns of confusion and mild distress. Zkadel stepped in. Perhaps, Ambassador, this is one of those human variations we discussed. Their approach to agreements appears to be different from ours. The human news teams were recording everything. Billions of people around the world were watching. Pikilori knew she couldn't show uncertainty. Very well, she said finally. We can begin with your principles and then move to our standard agreement. The crowd of humans cheered. The news commentators called it a breakthrough moment. And later that night, as the diplomatic teams shared a meal together, something unexpected happened. Human and alien diplomats found themselves talking not about trade agreements or territory boundaries, but about their families, their home worlds, and their hopes for the future. The humans asked questions that no other species had ever asked, not about technology or resources, but about alien art, music, and beliefs. In his private quarters that night, Scal recorded a new entry in his ongoing report about humans. The diplomatic meeting today revealed yet another unexpected aspect of human behavior, he dictated. While other species approach new relationships with caution and formality, humans seem to seek personal connections first. Their simple document, created by Ambassador Carter during breakfast this morning according to our sources, somehow managed to establish a tone of friendship that might have taken standard protocols months to achieve. He paused, considering his next words carefully. Most surprisingly, their approach worked. Our diplomatic team reports feeling more at ease with these humans than with any species in recent memory. Perhaps there is something to learn from their methods. Commander Ryana, who had been promoted to oversee the entire Earth contact mission, entered his quarters without announcing herself. The High Council is concerned, she said without greeting. Ambassador Pikilori deviated from the protocol today. The humans deviated first, Zkadel pointed out. She merely adapted. That's the problem, Ryana said, her skin darkening with worry. Humans don't just ignore patterns themselves. They cause others to break patterns too. It's like they're contagious. Sthal looked at the data scrolling across his screens. Cultural exchange requests from both humans and Confederation members were flooding in at unprecedented rates. Perhaps, he said slowly, that's not entirely a bad thing. Ryana looked at him sharply. Careful, researcher. That sounds dangerously close to human thinking. As she left, Zkadel turned back to his report and added one final line. The question is no longer whether humans will adapt to the galaxy, but how the galaxy will adapt to humans. 6 months after the first official contact, Earth was buzzing with activity. Alien technology had begun to change human society in small but important ways. Clean energy systems from the Confederation replaced old power plants. Medical devices that could heal injuries in minutes were being tested in hospitals. And humans were sharing their own unique creations. Their art, music, and food had become surprisingly popular among the aliens, but not everyone in the galaxy was happy about Earth joining the Confederation. The Devourer Hive, an old enemy of the Confederation, watched the situation with great interest. The Devourers were insect-like beings who lived to conquer. They had fought the Confederation for centuries, each side winning some battles and losing others. The humans are still new to space travel, said Hive Commander Krivak as he studied the reports. Their defenses will be weak. This is the perfect time to test them. The Devourer attack came without warning. 7 warships appeared near Earth's moon base and began firing on the small defense stations there. The moon base was important. It controlled much of Earth's new defense network. In the Confederation's command center orbiting Earth, military analyst Tervak watched with worry as the attack began. This is standard Devourer procedure, he explained to Zkadel, who had been called to the center because of his human expertise. They're testing Earth's defenses, looking for weaknesses. All new Confederation members face this kind of test. And how do new members usually respond? Skull asked, his eyes moving between multiple screens showing the battle. They follow standard defense protocols, Tervak said. They call for help from the Confederation fleet. We send ships, the Devourers retreat. It's almost a ceremony at this point. But on the main screen, they could see that Earth was not following the protocol. Instead of calling for help, the human military was launching ships of their own. What are they doing? Tuvok asked, his skin turning pale with worry. Their ships are no match for Devourer technology. Sithal watched as small Earth vessels moved toward the battle. The ships were new, built using some Confederation technology but designed by humans. They were faster than pure human ships but not as advanced as Confederation vessels. They should be coordinating with us, Tuvok sighed, his voice rising. There's a system for this. A protocol. On Earth, Admiral Susan Foster sat in her command chair at Space Defense Headquarters. At 53, she had spent her entire career in the Navy before being chosen to lead Earth's new Space Force. Her short gray hair and steady eyes gave her a look of calm confidence, even now. They're testing us, she told her officers. So let's show them something they've never seen before. Instead of forming a defensive line, as military doctrine would suggest, the Earth ships spread out in what looked like random patterns. Some moved behind Earth's moon. Others seemed to retreat. A few charged directly at the Devourers. What is this formation? Tuvok asked, his fingers moving quickly over his control panel to run an analysis. It matches no known battle strategy. Perhaps, Zikathil suggested, that's exactly the point. On her command ship, Admiral Foster spoke to her captains through the communication system. Remember your training. Each ship acts independently. Use your judgment. Find opportunities. Create confusion? Captain Greg Martinez of the defense ship Blue Horizon saw his chance when two Devourer ships focused on a larger Earth vessel. While they were distracted, he took his ship into a crater on the moon's surface, using it for cover. Power to forward. Guns, he told his crew. Wait for my mark. When the Devourer ships passed overhead, he fired up from the crater, hitting them from below where their shields were weakest. Both enemy ships were damaged before they knew what had happened. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Earth ships used unusual tactics, hiding behind space debris, making sudden course changes, splitting up and then coming together again in unexpected ways. There was no central formation, no single strategy that the Devourers could counter. In the command center, Tuvok watched in amazement. This should not be working, he said. Their actions are uncoordinated, chaotic. No, Zikathil corrected him. They are coordinated, but not in a way we understand. Each human captain is making decisions based on the immediate situation. They're adapting faster than the Devourers can respond. 6 hours after the battle began, the Devourer ships were retreating. They had lost 3 vessels and the others were damaged. The Earth forces had lost only 2 small ships. Admiral Foster stood on the bridge of her command ship, watching the enemy retreat on her view screen. Send medical teams to the damaged moon base, she ordered, and prepare a full report for the Confederation. That evening, Zikathil met with the High Council representatives who had come to Earth to oversee the integration process. They had called an emergency meeting to discuss the battle. This was not how new members are supposed to defend themselves, said Council Member J.P. Trock, the oldest and most respected of the group. They were supposed to call for our help. With respect, Zikathil replied. The Devourers attacked suddenly. Earth forces were closer. They responded in the way that made sense to them. Their response was chaotic, said another council member. It looked like they had no plan at all. That was their plan, Zikathil explained. Admiral Foster later told me they call it distributed command. Each ship captain had authority to make decisions based on the situation they faced. This let them adapt more quickly than if they were following orders from a central command. The council members looked at each other with expressions that Zikathil had learned to recognize as confusion. But how can they coordinate without a central strategy? J.P. Trock asked. They had a central goal, defend the moon base and drive off. The attackers, Zikathil said. But each captain chose their own way to achieve that goal. It's like a flock of birds changing direction. No single bird is in charge, but they all turn together. J.P. Trock's skin showed patterns of deep thought. The Devourers have fought us for centuries. They know all our strategies. They can predict our responses. But they could not predict the humans, Zkadil finished the thought, and that is why they lost. Later that night, as Zkadil updated his ongoing report on humans, he added a new section. Human military doctrine defies conventional galactic strategy. Where other species seek order and clear chains of command, humans embrace a controlled chaos that makes them extraordinarily difficult to predict in battle. What appears to outside observers as disorder contains patterns that only they can recognize. He paused, thinking about the implications. The question now becomes, can the Confederation learn from this approach? Or are we too set in our ways to adapt? 1 year after Earth joined the Galactic Confederation, the integration was moving faster than anyone had expected. Humans had taken to space travel with great enthusiasm. Earth ships, built with a mix of human design and alien technology, were now common sights at trading posts and scientific stations across the nearby sectors, but it was in the area of science that humans were causing the greatest stir in the galactic community. And no scientific development had caused more excitement and confusion than the Jang Patel theory. Dr. Grace Jang and Dr. Raj Patel worked at a small university laboratory in what humans called California. Their equipment was modest by Confederation standards. Their funding was limited. By all normal measures, they should not have been able to make any significant discoveries. Yet they had just published a paper that challenged 3,000 years of established physics. In the main science center of the Confederation, located on a space station orbiting Earth, Chief Scientist Nicolara read the paper for the third time. Her skin had turned a deep purple, the color of intense concentration among her species. "This cannot be correct," she said to her assistant. "They've had access to our physics knowledge for barely a year. They cannot possibly have developed a theory that our brightest minds have missed for millennia." Her assistant, a younger scientist named Tickamore, looked nervous. "We've checked their math. We've run the simulations. The theory appears to be sound. But how?" And Kalara asked, her voice rising with frustration. "How could they see something we've missed for so long?" ZK Thel, who had been invited to the meeting because of his expertise on humans, had a theory of his own. "I believe," he said carefully, "that it's because they didn't start with our knowledge." Kalara turned all four of her eyes toward him. "Explain." "Our scientists build on 3,000 years of established theory," Zikai Thiel said. "When a new scientist begins their training, they learn what we already know. They accept certain ideas as proven fact. But Drs. Jang and Patel approached the problem differently." He touched a control panel and a video appeared on the screen. It showed the two human scientists in their laboratory, talking excitedly and drawing diagrams on a clear board between them. "When they received access to our physics knowledge," Zkadil continued, "they didn't accept it as fact. They saw it as just another theory to be tested. They compared it to their own human physics and looked for places where the two didn't match." On the screen, Dr. Jang pointed to a section of an equation and erased part of it. Dr. Patel nodded and wrote, "Something new in its place. They found a small assumption in our basic physics," Zkadil explained. "Something so fundamental that none of our scientists had questioned it for 2,000 years. But they questioned everything, and that led them to the new theory." And Kalara's skin slowly changed from purple to a more neutral blue as she considered this. "You're saying their ignorance was an advantage?" "Not ignorance," Zkadil corrected. "Fresh perspective. They saw possibilities where we saw only established facts. The Jang Patel theory proposed that space itself had more dimensions than previously thought. But unlike earlier multidimensional theories, they're suggested that these extra dimensions could be accessed with the right energy field. If true, it would revolutionize space travel, potentially reducing journey times by 60% or more the next day." The two human scientists were invited to present their work to the Confederation Science Council. The large chamber was filled with the brightest scientific minds from hundreds of worlds. Dr. Grace Jang, a woman of 52 with short black hair streaked with gray, stood calmly at the presentation platform. Beside her, Dr. Raj Patel, younger at 45 with a neatly trimmed beard, adjusted the display controls. "Thank you for the opportunity to share our work," Dr. Zhang began. "We understand that our theory challenges some long-held beliefs." That is an understatement," said one council member from the audience. "You are suggesting that the foundation of our understanding of space-time is flawed." Dr. Patel smiled. "Not flawed. Just incomplete. Like Newton's physics was incomplete until Einstein came along." This reference to human scientists caused murmurs in the audience. "The math is sound," Dr. Zhang continued. "But we understand that you may be skeptical. That's why we've also built a prototype device that demonstrates the principle on a small scale." This announcement caused a stir. Building a working device based on such a new theory should have taken years. Dr. Patel held up a small object that looked like a metal sphere, with glowing blue lines crossing its surface. "This is just a demonstration model. It can create a field that extends only a few centimeters. But within that field, the extra dimensions become accessible." He placed the device on a table and activated it. A soft blue glow surrounded it. Then he took a small metal rod and moved it toward the device. As the rod entered the blue field, part of it seemed to disappear. "The rod isn't vanishing," Dr. Zhang explained. "Part of it is simply existing in dimensions we normally can't perceive." The demonstration continued for several minutes, with the two scientists answering questions and showing how objects behave differently inside the field. By the end, even the most skeptical council members were showing signs of excitement. After the presentation, Ezekiel met with the two scientists in a small room off the main chamber. "Your theory will change everything," he told them. "But I'm curious, how did you think to question such a basic assumption?" Dr. Zhang laughed. "That's the funny part. We didn't set out to challenge your physics. We were actually trying to understand it better, but Raj here has a habit of asking the most basic questions." "I just asked why," Dr. Patel said with a shrug. "Why does this equation use this constant? Why do we assume space works this way and not another way? Sometimes the best questions are the simplest ones." Later, in his private quarters, ZK added to his ongoing report about humans. "The unpredictability of humans extends to their cognitive processes. They make connections between disparate fields that our specialized educational systems would never permit. They question assumptions that are so fundamental to our thinking that we no longer even see them as assumptions." He paused, considering his next words carefully. "Perhaps the greatest gift humans bring to the Confederation is not their technology or their resources, but their different way of thinking. They see patterns we miss and miss patterns we see, and in that difference lies the potential for growth that neither of us could achieve alone." As he finished his report, ZK looked out his window at the Earth below. Already, research teams across the Confederation were beginning to adopt what they called the human approach, questioning basic assumptions, looking at problems from multiple angles, encouraging unconventional thinking. The Zhang Patel theory was just the beginning. A new era of scientific discovery was dawning, all because humans simply didn't see the universe the way everyone else did. 2 years after Earth joined the Galactic Confederation, a threat emerged from the center of the galaxy that no one had seen in thousands of years. Ancient records called them the void entities, creatures made of dark energy that fed on regular matter. The few historical accounts described them as black clouds that could absorb entire planets. Most species had considered these stories to be myths. But now the long-range sensors at the edge of the galaxy showed massive energy disturbances moving toward populated systems. The void entities were real, and they were coming. The Confederation Council called an emergency meeting on their main station. Representatives from 500 worlds gathered in the Great Chamber. The mood was grim. "The old record suggests that the void entities cannot be stopped," said Council Leader J.P. Trock, his skin a pale gray color that showed his fear. "They consume all matter they touch. Our weapons would be useless against them." Images appeared on the large screens around the chamber. Dark clouds moved through space, absorbing asteroids and small moons as they passed. Data showed their path would take them through dozens of populated systems within months. We must evacuate the threatened systems, said one council member. Move the populations to safe worlds. There is not enough time, said another. And not enough ships? Billions will die? The chamber erupted in fearful voices. Some called for using all their weapons at once. Others suggested hiding behind the galaxy's largest stars. Some even proposed surrendering and asking the void for mercy. In the midst of this panic, Olivia Martinez, the human representative to the council, stood up. At 38, she was younger than most representatives, with dark hair pulled back in a neat bun and brown eyes that showed no fear. Have we tried communicating with them? She asked. The chamber fell silent. Everyone looked at her with confusion. Communicate? Council leader J. Petrock said slowly. With the void? The records say they are not a species. They are a force, a cosmic horror. They do not communicate. The records are thousands of years old, Olivia pointed out. And they were written by people who were running away, not trying to understand. What if there's more to these entities than we know? Z.K. Thill, who now served as the chief advisor on human affairs, watched with interest. Even after 2 years, humans still managed to surprise him. What exactly are you suggesting? J. Petrock asked. I'm suggesting we try to talk to them before we decide they're monsters, Olivia said. If that doesn't work, we can still fight or run. But shouldn't we at least try? The idea seemed ridiculous to many council members. But humans had proven themselves useful before. And no one had better ideas. 3 weeks later, a joint team of human and Confederation scientists had set up a research station near the edge of void entity territory. The team was led by physicist Eric Washington and xenolinguist Kelly Rodriguez. Eric was a tall man of 45 with dark skin and a shaved head. Kelly was shorter, 40 years old, with shoulder-length brown hair and glasses. Both were experts in their fields, but neither had ever faced a challenge like this. The void entities don't use sound or light to communicate, Eric explained to Z.K. Thill, who had joined the research team as an observer. But they do create patterns in energy fields. We think these patterns might be a form of language. Kelly nodded. All communication is about patterns. If we can understand their patterns, maybe we can create our own that they'll understand. Their plan was to send pulses of energy that mimicked the patterns they had observed from the void. It was a long shot, but it was the only plan anyone had. It might not work, Eric admitted, but traditional weapons certainly won't. So what? Do we have to lose? For days, the team sent patterns toward the nearest void entity. There was no response. Then they tried different energy types, different frequencies, different patterns. Still nothing. Maybe the council was right, Kelly said after a week of failures. Maybe they're just a force, not something that can think or talk. But Eric wasn't ready to give up. What if we're thinking too much like ourselves? They're made of dark energy. They exist in ways we can barely understand. We need to think outside of our normal patterns, he called the team together. Let's try something new. Instead of sending patterns we think make sense, let's send patterns that match what the void itself does. Mirror their own energy fluctuations back to them. It was a radical idea, but they had nothing to lose. The team worked through the night, creating a device that could read the void's energy patterns and then generate similar ones. The next morning, they activated the device. It sent pulses that exactly matched the rhythms and frequencies they had. Recorded from the void entity, for hours, nothing happened. The team was about to give up when their sensors detected a change. The void entity had stopped moving. Then, slowly, it sent back a pulse of energy that matched their pattern but with a small change at the end. They responded. Kelly shouted, jumping up from her station. They copied our pattern and added to it. It's like they're saying, I hear you, Eric said, his voice quiet with awe. This could be first contact with a completely different form of life. Over the next days, the exchanges continued. The patterns became more complex. The team began to understand that the void entities were not mindless destroyers. They were ancient beings that experienced reality in ways completely different from any known species. They don't mean to destroy, Kelly explained to the Council in an emergency report. They perceive solid matter differently than we do. What we see as destruction, they see as transformation. They're converting matter into energy forms they can interact with. Can we make them understand that we need our planets in their current form? J.P. Trock asked. We think so, Eric replied. We're developing a way to show them that we're conscious beings with our own way of existing. The early responses suggest they can understand this concept. 2 months later, the first official agreement between the Confederation and the Void entities was established. The Void would avoid populated systems and would only transform uninhabited planets that the Confederation marked with special energy beacons. In return, the Confederation would provide the Void with certain types of energy they seemed to enjoy, harmless radiation that was a waste product of some Confederation technologies. In his final report to the High Council, Z.K. Thill wrote words that would eventually become the foundation of the Confederation's new approach to galactic society. The unpredictability of humans is not a flaw to be corrected or a problem to be solved. It is their greatest strength and now, perhaps, ours as well. In a universe of patterns, they are the beneficial chaos that prevents stagnation. They see possibilities where we see only limitations. He paused, considering how much had changed since that first meeting with Nancy Bell in her Montana farmhouse. Perhaps, he concluded, unpredictability is exactly what the galaxy needs. The report was officially accepted by the High Council, with one unprecedented amendment. For the first time in Confederation history, a new species was not merely granted membership, but given a unique designation, humanity, catalysts of change. When Seathal returned to Earth for the official ceremony, he met again with Nancy Bell. She was older now, her hair more gray than brown, but her eyes still held the same warmth. Did you know? He asked her as they sat on her porch looking at the stars. That first night when we landed in your field, did you know how much would change? Nancy laughed. Of course not, but that's the fun part of life, isn't it? Not knowing what comes next. Skal thought about all he had learned about humans in the past years. Their art, their music, their strange habits and wonderful ideas, their endless ability to surprise. Yes, he said, finally understanding. I believe it is. The message arrived on a Tuesday morning. No warning, no strange lights in the sky. Just a simple transmission that bypassed every security protocol Earth had ever created. It appeared simultaneously on every computer screen at NASA, the European Space Agency, and the United Earth Defense Command. To the inhabitants of Sol 3, designation Earth, the Galactic Senate extends an invitation for representation. Coordinates for transit follow. General Kate Williams stared at the screen in the Pentagon's crisis room, surrounded by world leaders connected via secure video. For 50 years, humanity had sent signals into space. For 50 years, silence had been the only answer. Until... Now, it could be a hoax, said the Russian president, his face grim on the monitor. Kate shook her head. The message came through quantum channels we haven't even finished developing yet. Whoever sent this is at least 200 years ahead of us technologically. The Chinese premier leaned forward. The coordinates indicate a location near Jupiter. We have nothing that can reach there quickly enough to meet any reasonable timeline for a diplomatic mission. The room fell silent until the American president spoke. Actually, we do. 3 days later, Commander Alex Howard stood in a hangar, looking at the experimental vessel Intrepid Horizon. The ship represented 10 years of secret international cooperation, built using revolutionary propulsion theories that could cut the Jupiter journey from months to days. Alex was 42, with short brown hair that showed touches of gray at the temples. 20 years in the Navy had left him with a straight posture and calm, observant eyes. His selection had been unanimous among the world leaders. A decorated military officer with a doctorate in interspecies communication theory. Though no one had expected that field to have practical applications so soon. She's beautiful, Alex said to Captain Samantha Rivera, who would pilot the ship. Samantha nodded. She was younger than Alex, with warm brown skin and black hair pulled back in a tight bun. 6 fusion engines, experimental shield technology, and enough supplies for a 6-month mission. We can reach the coordinates in 4 days. And if it's a trap? Alex asked. Then we're dead anyway, Samantha said with a shrug. But the ship has some surprises if things go badly. The crew was small, just 12 people. Besides Alex and Samantha, there was Lieutenant Daniel Garcia handling security, Dr. Olivia Wright as xenobiologist, communications officer Christopher Bennett, and 7 others with specialties ranging from engineering to medicine. Each had been chosen not just for their skills, but for their psychological profiles, people who could handle the unknown without panic. The launch happened at dawn. No press, no fanfare. The world governments had agreed to keep the mission secret until they knew what they were dealing with. The intrepid Horizon rose from its hidden base in the Arizona desert on columns of blue fire, then vanished as its experimental engines engaged. The journey was surprisingly smooth. Alex spent most of it reviewing the limited information they had and preparing possible first contact scenarios. On the 4th day, they approached the coordinates. "I'm not seeing anything," Samantha said, scanning the area near Jupiter's orbit. "No station, no ship, nothing," Alex frowned. "The coordinates are specific. We're exactly where we're supposed to be." Christopher's voice came over the comm system. "Captain, I'm detecting an energy surge directly ahead. It's growing." Before. Then space itself seemed to fold. A circle of swirling blue energy formed, growing until it was large enough to engulf their ship. "It's a wormhole," Dr. Wright said, her voice filled with wonder. "A stable wormhole. That's supposed to be impossible." "Options, Captain?" Alex asked. Samantha's hands hovered over the controls. "We can try to back away, but if they can create something like this, they can probably pull us in anyway." "One say." "We go through on our terms," Alex nodded. "Proceed." The ship moved forward. As they entered the blue swirl, the sensors went dark. For 30 seconds, they felt a strange sensation, as if they were being stretched and compressed at the same time. Then light returned to the viewports and gasps filled the bridge. They were no longer near Jupiter. Instead, they faced a massive ringed planet with multiple moons. And in orbit around one of those moons was something that could only be described as a space city, a massive structure of metal and light with thousands of ships moving around it like bees around a hive. "My God," Alex whispered, the communications system activated without anyone touching it. A face appeared on the main screen, if it could be called a face. It resembled an insect, with compound eyes and mandibles that moved as it spoke. Yet somehow, its words came through in perfect English. "Greetings, humans of Earth. I am Vex T of the Zenth. I will be your guide to Concordia Station, home of the Galactic Senate." The alien's mandibles clicked. "Please follow my vessel into dock. You have many protocols to learn before formal." Introduction. A small ship appeared beside them, sleek and bronze-colored. As it moved toward the station, they followed. "This can't be real," Daniel muttered, his hand never far from his sidearm. "Oh, it's real," Dr. Wright said, examining the readings on her tablet. "That structure is approximately the size of Earth's moon, but artificial. I'm detecting over 1,000 different atmospheric compositions in various sections." As they approached, Alex noticed the organization of the ships around the station. Some were clearly military, angular with obvious weapon mounts. Others were massive, resembling floating cities themselves. But there seemed to be a pattern to their movement, with some vessels given wide berth while others were closely monitored by the military ships. "Your civilization is young," Vex T said through the communication system, "but you have developed quickly. This is why you have been granted observer status in the Senate." "How many civilizations are represented here?" Alex asked. 200. And 43 with full membership. 31 with observer status, soon to include Earth, all under the wise guidance of Emperor Zarkoth. Alex frowned. "Emperor? I thought this was a Senate." There was a slight pause before Vex T responded. "The Emperor is ... first among equals. A guide for the greater good of all species." Their ship was directed to a docking bay on the outer ring of the station. As they prepared to disembark, Samantha pulled Alex aside. I don't like this. Did you notice how the military vessels are positioned? It's not a defense formation, it's control, Alex nodded. I saw it too. And our guide hesitated when I asked about this Emperor. Vexti met them at the airlock. Standing upright, the alien was nearly 7 feet tall, with 4 arms and an exoskeleton that shimmered with iridescent colors. Despite the alien appearance, there was something almost warm in the way it greeted them. You may bring 5 representatives to the orientation. The others must remain with your vessel. Alex selected his team, himself, Samantha, Daniel, Olivia, and Christopher. As they stepped through the airlock, the gravity adjusted automatically to Earth normal, though the air had a slightly sweet smell. Before we proceed further, Vexti said, mandibles clicking softly, I must share something. This is not in my official capacity. The alien looked around as if checking for observers. The Senate you will see is not what it once was. Emperor Zarkoth presents himself as a benevolent leader, but many species have lost their voice under his rule. Why are you telling us this? Alex asked quietly. Because humans are different. You have no natural predisposition to submit. This makes you dangerous in the Emperor's eyes. It is why you were invited, to be studied and controlled before you develop further. Vexti's compound eyes seemed to focus more intently on Alex, but it might also make you our last hope. Before Alex could ask more questions, other aliens approached, a delegation sent to officially welcome them. Vexti immediately straightened and resumed a formal tone. Esteemed representatives of Earth, may I present the welcoming committee of the Galactic Senate. Your journey into galactic politics begins now. Alex stepped forward, shoulders straight, mind racing with the implications of what he'd just learned. Behind him, Earth's future stood balanced on a knife edge. Ahead, an empire waited, unaware that the primitive humans they had invited might be the one species they couldn't control.